Well, this is the grand finale here, not so much grand, but it's the finale. So what I'm going to be talking about is good bugs, bad bugs. So we're going to be going over beneficial insects and also IPM and IPM strategies. So what is a pest? Definition of a pest really is anything that is annoying or troublesome, including our kids. And but a pest can be anything, even things we may think are good, like animals. But when it comes to our gardens, we know a deer can be a pest, a squirrel can be a pest. But our typical thought of pests are insects, diseases, weeds, definitely, animals, and others. Others can be sunlight. You have a high sunlight area. You have a plant there that actually is the wrong plant for the wrong place. It gets sunburned all the time. You can actually call that sunlight a pest. Can be a broken water main that floods part of your garden all the time. Can be just about anything that's a nuisance to you and your gardening. So just to go over a few, so insects. You probably have seen these. I know I have. Aphids, mealybugs, whiteflies. Tons of species of aphids here in Florida that you're going to see. You'll see cotton aphids, as I go over, the coriander aphid, I almost said pink hibiscus, green peach aphid, melon aphid. So these, I'm not quite sure what this picture is, but it's called the red aphid, but I have never seen these in my garden. Mealybugs are also another problematic pest. This one is a Madeira mealybug, but pink hibiscus has been a problem for probably the last 10 years, but it's easy to take care of. You also see citrus mealybug and also long-tailed mealybug. The one thing that we saw in the first slide was what looked like a mealybug, but was actually called a mealybug destroyer. So it was a beneficial pest. So we'll get to that later. Whiteflies is our final one here on the slide. Silverleaf whitefly is going to be your main whitefly, but there's also a greenhouse whitefly that's a little bit bigger. Whiteflies are a real problem because they vector the yellow leaf curly virus, but they also vector 60 other diseases. So as you know, if you've been gardening, whitefly are like your nemesis. The minute you start seeing whitefly, you need to do something about it instantly. You cannot let it get out of control, or else you're going to have a real problem, and your neighbor's going to have a real problem. Other insects that you're going to see are going to be leaf miner, thrips, caterpillars, scales, nematodes. You're not going to see nematodes, but you'll know they're there. And the two-spotted spider mite, which is another real problematic insect if you let it take control of your garden without doing something about it right when you see them. Aphids and whiteflies, interesting thing about them is that they also produce honeydew. And so anytime you start seeing sooty mold around your plants, you know you have a real problem with one of those two insects. So to go on. Diseases, I'm just going to go over these real quick. Blossom end root, powdery mildew, and tomato blight you're going to see in your garden, especially in Florida. Blossom end root is actually not a disease. It's a calcium deficiency in newly forming fruit. What that's caused by is either too much fertilization, and so it's a rapid growth, and then also from large amounts of water coming after a very dry spell or a drought. Other types of diseases you'll see are the yellow leaf curly virus. Again, that was the vector by the whitefly, and the spotted wilt virus, which is vectored by thrips. Both of those are problematic in the fact that there's not, for the yellow curly virus, there is no control for it besides removal from the garden. So you can contain it, but you just need to remove either the affected parts of that plant, or you need to remove that plant altogether, because it will spread. So other types you're going to see are rust, bacterial leaf spot, target spot, downy mildew, funguses, anthracnose. I knew I was going to mess up on that one. But there's a lot of diseases just because we're a very humid area. But a lot of these things are easy to take care of or prevent. As Elaine was saying, with things like the baking soda, there are natural ways to take care of them and to prevent them from happening. Weeds. I don't know much about weeds, but I know when I see them. So we always know that there's crabgrass, dollarweed, nuts hedge. Dollarweed is really prevalent in areas that stay moist and stay wet. You know, those are hard also to stop from spreading just because they run in kind of a chain. So you can pull one, but it's actually connected to 1,000 others underground that you can't get to. Other weeds that we'll see in the garden are clover, pigweed, chickweed, and there's a few more that are the main weeds, but these are kind of the ones you're always going to see. So other pests, animals, so deers, rabbits, raccoons, unless you have a way of keeping them out, you might as well plant 100 tomato plants so that you can have one. Because they are going to get in. So you do need to find some sort of a barrier to keep them out. Others are the squirrels, moles, and armadillos we have around. So going over, organic gardening. All the community gardens practice organic gardening. Organic gardening, its technical term is gardening without synthetic fertilizers or synthetic pesticides. But really it's a philosophy. You can garden, but when you organic garden, it means that you are invested in the environment. So you're gardening because you like to have, you know, organic food. You like to make sure that you're not getting pesticides on your food, but you're also doing a benefit to the environment because you're building your soil. You're building the beneficial insect population. You're helping pollinators. So you're doing as much for your garden as your garden's giving to you. So organic gardening is a wonderful, wonderful thing. So steps to organic gardening: maximize plant health and production and improving the soil and adding organic matter. Again, as Elaine said, compost is a fabulous thing, but adding organic matter is very important, especially here in Florida. As you know, our soil is really sand. It only has about 1.5% organic matter, so you have to add amendments to your soil in order to get the plant nutrients that are needed. Also, when you add this organic matter, it improves the soil structure, so it holds together better. It holds water, it holds nutrients better, and it also adds a buffering capacity to the soil, which means that once you have that organic matter established, it can take a range of pHs, and it's able to withstand those fluxes in pHs a little bit better. So, as I said, right plant, right place, right time, when I talked about the tomato plant, that's really, really imperative, especially in organic gardening. You need to know what type of watering needs your plant has, what type of temperatures your plants can tolerate, what the sunlight need is of your plant. So that's kind of the first start. When you're planting, you need to know you're not going to take a sun-sensitive plant and put it right in the middle of your garden without any other plant around that can shade it. So right plant, right place, right time. So pest control tools. The main pest control tool of organic gardening is a well-implemented IPM plan. So IPM is integrated pest management. All of our community gardens operate organically and independently, and pest management is the key, and it's required within all of our gardens. We follow an IPM plan. The county has an IPM plan. Back in 2012, they established the resolution 2012-98, which implemented, or which said that the IPM plan has been implemented for all of Sarasota County. So our community gardens follow it, our schools follow it, Sarasota County workers follow it. So anybody who comes under Sarasota County government umbrella is following their IPM plan. So what is IPM? So integrated pest management. There's actually a 4-step process. It's actually kind of 8, but they say it's a 4-step. It's a holistic approach. So as I was saying, it takes into consideration all the functions. So when you're organic gardening, you're holistic gardening because you're looking to improve the environment as a whole. You're looking to improve the plant, the air, the quality of the soil, and which in turn helps us. Education identification. Know what insect you're looking at. Know if it's good or bad. That's really, really important to organic gardening because without, and I say without pesticides, you don't want to kill things. You want things to work together. There's an equilibrium. If we walk outside, we're not going to get infested with something because there's something else that's killing it. So there's a good equilibrium in your garden, and that's what you're really looking for. Low toxicity. Always use your alternatives. Always use preventative methods first, and then look for your lowest impact, your lowest invasive impact tool available. And I say that because it could be pruning, it could be mulching, but beneficials, and then in case scenario, adding some sort of a organic pesticide, which would be a BT, to take care of the problem. But always look for the lowest impact first. And focus on prevention. Stop the problem before it becomes a problem. So as I say, whiteflies. If you walk in, you need to know the threshold of a whitefly, which helps. So if you see 2 whiteflies, you're going to look and say, okay, I might have a problem here. I need to address this. If you walk through a tomato patch and you get this white cloud, you got a problem. And your neighbor is not going to be happy about that. So prevention, prevention, prevention. Okay. So IPM process. First thing, determine your tolerance level. How much can you tolerate? Tolerance level means it's not a 0 tolerance. So for IPM, you got to remember that you have to have a level that you're comfortable with, levels that you know that that can be sustained within the garden without negatively impacting your gardening. So scouting, what's going on in the garden? You should be scouting every time you're in the garden. You should be looking, seeing what's there, seeing if there's a new bug, because you want to prevent this problem, or prevent this before it becomes a problem. Next one, identification. Identifying the pest. Is this actually a pest, or is this a beneficial insect? So this is really important to know what you're looking at. So if you don't know what it is, there's always us over at the extension office that can help. Other gardeners, master gardeners are very, very good at IDing pests. But just knowing what you're looking at is really important because most of the time you're either looking at, a lot of times you're looking at a beneficial insect, or it might even just be a benign insect that just happens to be there, but not causing any harm to the garden. And then the 4th process is the controls, and this is where I said there's actually truly 8 because your control methods are kind of a subset. So those are cultural, mechanical, biological, and chemical. So I'll go into those next. So your cultural. What your culture is basically how you should start your garden. These are your habits, your behaviors, how you want your garden to start. So what you want is you want to start good. So you want to start clean, stay clean. So start with really good soil. Start with good amendments. Build healthy soils. So you don't want to feed your plants. Don't think about you want to add Miracle-Gro, which you can't, but you don't want to feed them. You want to build that soil so that soil is feeding your plants and giving it what it needs. You start with a healthy disease-resistant plants. That was really important. I'm glad that Elaine had pointed that out. Hygiene, good hygiene. Pruning back any of your diseased plants. So a lot of times pruning is going to take care of diseases. It also can take care of infestations. A lot of times aphids. Aphids love new flesh. You'll get a huge infestation at the top of a plant. You can either hit it with a nice water spray, which can take care of them, dislodge them, or you can even prune off that flush, you bag it, and you take it away. So pruning is a really good source of cultural practice. But you also need to make sure when you're cleaning off, if you're pruning for diseases and pathogens, always make sure you're cleaning your tools between plants. So start the day by cleaning your tools, clean between plants, clean after. Clean, clean, clean. So you can use this household bleach, isopropyl alcohol, and all of, so a lot of times you can keep a jar in the cabinet, and so you can just keep reusing that jar of alcohol. So mulch is a great thing for the garden. A healthy 3 to 4 inches of mulch is going to help to maintain control of the weeds, so the weeds won't be able to come up through, but also stop soil erosion. It helps to keep the moisture in. It conserves nutrients, and also this is what I like to, provides a barrier between the fruit and the soil. So if you have low-lying tomatoes, when your great, beautiful tomato plant just gets heavy with these tomatoes, if it's sitting on mulch, it's going to be okay. But if it's sitting on the ground, it's going to end up getting a disease and it's going to rot out. Types of mulch we have are straw, alfalfa, leaves, grass clipping, seaweed, newspaper, cardboard. There's all kinds of mulches. And all those mulches also, the good thing about them is they break down and they become soil amendments as they break down. But same with the amendments, you have to keep adding mulch as well to your garden to maintain it. Minimize weeds. Weeds are not only just troublesome, they harbor a lot of insects. A lot of your bad insects love to hang out in weeds and certain other plants, and then will come into your garden. So maintaining the weeds will also keep it down. Thrips are another big one. They love to stay in like the big elephant grass. So if you have that right outside your garden, and then all of a sudden they come into your garden, and you're going to end up with some viruses in your garden. So. Irrigation, starting with clean water, is really important. Diseases can spread through irrigation lines in the contaminated water, so always start with a really good clean water source that you know. So fertilizers and amendment. Again, don't feed the plant, build the soil. Plants, the three top things, NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Nitrogen is good for leaves, for the flush. Phosphorus is good for root development, and potassium is good for the vigor of the plant or the tissue growth of the plant. So those are the three main parts that they need. They also need, in larger quantities, calcium, magnesium, sulfur, and then 7 trace elements. If you are putting in the proper amount of amendments, these are all going to be available to your plant through your amendments. Compost, a great thing. You can, as Elaine said, you can compost on site within the garden, or you can do a home compost and bring it to your garden. The great thing about home compost is you're actually recycling everything, so you're having a zero waste stream. So you're throwing away your coffee grounds right now, but if you're composting, all of a sudden your coffee grounds are now helping you grow your tomatoes and your peppers. So. Manure, alfalfa is great. Blood meal is high in nitrogen, so blood meal is a great fertilizer. Kelp, the fish emulsion, is a potassium source, a really good potassium source. Wood ash is a really good source of both lime, potassium, and trace minerals. So that's a good one if you don't have enough amendments in your organic matter. So adding that wood ash is very good. Bone meal is really high in slow release phosphorus, so that's another great amendment. Sorry, I'm starting to talk quick. What you can't use, synthetic fertilizers and sewage sludge. Manure, good. Sewage sludge, bad. So the second control is mechanical. So this is actually getting your hands in there and getting dirty. Pinch, prune, pick. So this is something you're going to be doing on a daily basis or how often you're in your garden. Water sprays. As I said, water sprays are a great source of dislodging insects off your plants. Aphids are a great one. They're easy to take care of. Wouldn't worry about aphids. Whitefly, however, because they're an underleaf type insect, they're a little bit more problematic. So you have to think more towards oils and sprays for whitefly, but we'll get into that. Other mechanical things, traps and baits. Whiteflies love yellow, so the yellow sticky cards are great to put around your plants for whitefly. Pheromone traps are great. Thrips are great for pheromone traps. So if you're starting to have problems with thrips, you can put out pheromone traps. Putting out traps also helps you to see what is in your garden. So if you have something that's eating your plant and you don't know what it is, you can put out traps and see what collects, and you can bring them into the extension, and we can go through them and look at them for you. So let's see. So pruning, went over traps. Soil solarization. Again, Elaine went over this. It's a great way to get rid of pathogens, nematodes, diseases, but you have to also remember it also kills pretty much everything else. So you're going to get rid of some of your good beneficial nematodes as well. So again, that organic matter, adding that back in is going to be really important. The temperature ranges for under plastic, so when you're doing the solarization, it ends up can get up to 140 degrees under plastic, where nematodes only need up to 104 degrees to die. So, but that's for a length of time. You can't just solarize for a day and call it a day. It's an extended time. So it depends on how the problems that you're having in your soil. If you bring your soil and find out you do have nematodes, you probably should have it sterilized for a little. You should keep it under sterilization for a while longer. It's all, it's in writing that the actual amounts of time you should keep it. So, but again, the sterilization only reaches less than the top 12 inches of the soil. So you still may have nematodes further down, and those are going to repopulate once you bring that solarization off and add more amendments. So it's a battle, but you're going to win the battle. So biological is our third control. BT is Bacillus thuringiensis. BT is actually a great way to control insects. So there are different strains and different types of application methods, but it started as a target for caterpillars. And so the way this BT works is that they have to eat it. So you spray it on, the caterpillar eats it, and then basically what it is, it's a nerve toxin, and they stop eating. They can't eat. They stay alive, but they stop eating, so they basically starve to death. So here's another thing you have to think of. What type of a spray is this? So the fact that they're still alive, you may go, oh my gosh, it's not working. So thing out here is patience. So if you know what it's supposed to do, you have to give it time to work. So it's really important. So for BT, it's not a contact. It's not an instantaneous killer. It's a time. You have to give it a little bit of time, but that caterpillar will die. The other thing about BT, though, is because it is a living thing, you can't keep it in your hot garage for 6 months and then apply it and think that it's going to work. So follow the label on when you're spraying BT. Beneficial insects. Attract, don't buy. We have so many insects out there that are beneficials, but you can buy them as well. So you can add to your existing population. But when you get insects, you also have to remember that, we talk about that zero tolerance thing. You can't have a zero tolerance because if you want your beneficials to stay, you need some food for them. So once their food supply is gone, they're going to move on. So you got to find a way to keep those beneficials there. Good way to do it, have a companion plant that's outside that will attract, actually it's not companion, it's a sacrificial plant, that will attract some of these bad guys like aphids. all your lady beetles will go to that plant once they're out of your garden and go eat those. And so you'll have them in the area. So that's what you want to do. You want to make sure your beneficials have enough food stores so that they stay in the area. And that's what that was going on to create the habitat. So companion plants. Companion plants are plants that will benefit a plant that you already have in the garden. So it may be one that is close to a plant that needs a lot of shade. So it might be a taller plant that gives some shade to that plant. It can be a plant that helps repel certain insects. Marigolds are a great plant for repelling aphids and whitefly. So prevent weed and disease. So those are what companion plants are. It's something that you plant next to another plant that has a benefit for both plants. Sacrificial plants are plants you plant to sacrifice. So you have your beautiful garden. If you take and you plant a great plant, okay, you plant outside these sacrificial plants, before those bad insects get to your garden, they're going to get to those sacrificial plants and they're going to stay there. So they're not coming into your garden. Sorry, you just gave me the 5 minutes. So the fourth one is chemical. Chemical, this is always your fourth and last reason. Are you sure you need a chemical? Go through all your other steps first, your cultural, your mechanical. Make sure chemical is your last resort. Know your pest, know the stage it's at. If you're gonna have to use chemical, is it at a feeding stage or is it a stage like whitefly? Is it a red eye that ends up, doesn't feed at that point? So is a chemical, a feeding type gonna work, or do you need a contact? So you need to know what the stage of your pest is so you know what the treatment is for it. And always use least toxic first. Sorry. And read and follow the labeled directions. Very, very important, as we just saw a couple weeks ago, which was devastating to the 4 kids who passed away from the rat poison. So had that gentleman read the label, he would have known that you do not add water to that product as it turned into a gas. So very, very important to know, to read the labels, know what you need to be wearing. Do you need eye protection when you spray it? Not so much in the organic, but in anything you use, reading the label is imperative. It's very, very important. So chemicals for IPM, horde oils and sprays, awesome. They work really well. They can burn your plants, so you got to be careful with the amount and the timing of it. Soaps, diatomaceous earth is really good. It is a contact, also an ingested, so it's a silicate that if they, like slugs, if slugs climb over, then it'll break up their soft tissues. Spinosad is a great mode of action. It's a bacteria. Trying to see what highly active. It's a contact and an ingestion. D-limonene, I always say this one wrong. Basically, it's orange oil. That's a very, very good. It's a nerve toxin. It's a contact. Basically, kills on contact. Then your boric acid, isopropyl alcohol, hydrogen peroxide. So this are all approved chemicals on the chemical list when it's your last resort. Not good. Synthetic chemicals, products that aren't labeled for organic or food safety. 7-amdro, glyphosate, cebidia, malathion. So these are all big no-nos in the organic gardening. The Organic Materials Database, so the OMRI is Organic Materials Review Institute. Very good website. I went there yesterday. I spent a lot of time on it. And then the ATTRA, which is the National Sustainable Agricultural Assistance Program. These are 2 very good websites for everything you might want to know. So, let's see, you're all writing, so I'm letting a writer down. I can go back to this too at the end if that's all right. I promise. So beneficial insects. Let the bug do the work. So this is a praying mantis. So what are beneficials? Beneficials are basically any insect that preys on a harmful insect that either reduces its numbers or reduces their reproductive potential. And it includes both the predators and parasitoids. So pests, less than 1% of landscape insects are actually truly pests. Globally, there are 950,000 insect species. Only 2,300 of those are considered pests in the urban ecosystem. So that means 99% of other insects are feeding on other insects. So the vast majority of insects are either benign or beneficial. Here in Florida, we're surrounded by bugs. So and we're all still here, so obviously most of them are beneficial. And if you even think about cockroaches, not that they're beneficial, but they're a food for some other animal. So they do their part as well. So guilt by association, beneficials have this problem. Here, ladybug larvae. Most people, I've gotten calls, my previous job, of, I have bugs, I need you to come out. And I'm just like, you have very good bugs. So recognize a bug, it's really important. A lot of times, this is ladybug larvae. They're actually more voracious than the lady beetle themselves. So having these are actually better than having mom. So they'll eat up to 10 times more aphids than an adult. So know your bugs. Find out if it's a good or a bad bug. Beneficials are also called natural enemies. So there's that's kind of an interchangeable name for them. Important beneficial insect groups, mantids, wasps, parasitic flies. Parasitoids are ones that either lay their eggs on or in or near an animal, another insect, and then those eggs hatch and then they feed off of that insect. What a way to die. Examples here, we have the lacewing, parasitic wasp. This is a pirate bug. I believe that's a damsel bug. This is the mealybug destroyer that I was telling you about. So everybody gets so confused with just a regular mealybug, and then our lady beetle. Forgot I have the pointer, sorry. Some of them feed on multiple life stages, and their life stages also feed, those life stages are multiple feeders. So the adult will feed, the nymph will feed, or the larvae will feed on either adults or larvae. So how do we preserve beneficials? Recognize good from the bad, set your tolerance levels. What are you willing to deal with before you go to that point of having to use a pest or a chemical to control it. Diversify your plant palette. Don't always plant the same plant in the same place at the same time every year. This also is one thing for your soil. You need to rotate crops. It's a good thing. Bugs kill, don't kill them, wait a minute. So always sit back and think, do you have to spray? A lot of times you'll have a good bug. This is a big-eyed bug. He gets confused with chinch bugs, which are very bad bugs. But once you start spraying, even if you're spraying for chinch bugs, you got to remember you're going to be killing something else. So always sit back, recognize your bug, determine whether you need further measures to take care of it. And when we kill off the natural enemies of a pest, we inherit their work. This is a quote by Carl Hoffaker. He's a researcher at University of California, Berkeley. He's kind of he started the IPM movement. The movement was really started from a book, what was it called? I forget what it's called, Silent Spring, published in 1962. It really was the start of the environmental movement. It got people thinking about what the lack of oversight on pesticide sprays and what it was doing detrimentally to our environment. It led to the ban on DDT in our agricultural use eventually, and it also led to the establishment of the EPA. So this quote says everything. If you don't want to do half the work, then keep your good bugs in your garden. So resources, here are some resources for you. Master Gardener Plant Clinic, I think every week at the center, the extensions. So, and I believe that's the end. This presentation was actually put together by another person, and so I've taken it over, but I wanted to make sure that they knew that they got credit for it as well. So a lot of work went into it initially, and I got to reap the rewards of it. So thank you so much. I believe that concludes our, yes.